Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Children in the 21st century are avid users of technology, more so than generations past. This rise in use has led to much attention on the consequence of technology use and how this impacts children's brains and their social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development. Much of this research in these fields, especially brain-based research, is in its infancy. Furthermore, it often shows very small correlations between technology use and child outcomes. Whether technology causes these outcomes is unclear, and small effect sizes bring questions about real-life implications for children. Despite these issues, policymakers in various countries have set guidelines for technology use in children, which are often restriction-focused. Well, joining us to discuss digital parenting is Internet safety educator ABIE. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, as a result of COVID-19, the use of technology has played a vital role. Educational institutions have resorted to virtual learning. Well, my daughter, for example, has been home since March or April, and their school have remained closed. There are also so many side effects to that, and one is the use of the online platform. Now, what do you make of young children being exposed to this type of learning?
Yeah, well, that's a very important question in this age that we're in, especially since the stay home and the lockdown order. For sure, it is a rising concern for a lot of parents, the amount of time kids are spending online, not only the time, but actually what they are exposed to online. According to Shared Hope International, which is a child serving organization out in the US, they said that there is 800% increase in online child sex trafficking. So in the form of sharing sexual materials of children, or in form of turning children into actual sex workers online, that is definitely on the increase. And that's not the only problem online. It's not only about child sexual trafficking. Of course, there's increase in their access to pornography in what they view, and as well as, of course, with access exposure to the internet comes with other vices such as violence and being exposed to, horrific and horrendous kind of video and information that children are actually not matured enough to process. Yes, it's a rising concern, and parents are definitely concerned about this, as well as organizations and and stakeholders as well.
Okay, and I mean, when it comes to technology, at the end of the day, it's something that we cannot avoid. It's very much imbibed into our daily lives, and that's why it's important to have tools that can prevent certain things. As an internet safety educator yourself, what tools can you advise parents on who may want to put certain restrictions in place on the internet, for example, or avoid their children from downloading certain applications to make the internet a safer place?
Oh, okay. Well, when it comes to restrictions and actually placing softwares on the computers or on the smartphones to protect them, those are wonderful ideas. But actually, that is actually a next step. The first recommended intervention is discussion, having this open discussion with your children, and also showing that interest in actually what they do, and then having that open discussion about what the safety risk is out there, and just making it a regular, frequent, consistent discussion within the family, letting the children know what they may see and how they should react, and that they shouldn't be afraid to come to mom or dad or a safe adult when they come across vices online. And then I talked about installing those software as secondary, because if you install softwares without the agreement of the children, that's not going to work, because you can only protect your phones. What about your friends' phones? What about the other accesses that they may have, even still within the home, and when they go interact with others? So the first recommendation is having that frequent, regular discussion, letting your children know how to relate, how to react to online devices, and what you expect them to do, and what your family expect when it comes to, media values. What are your values? What are your tradition? What do you have you taught them to actually react? And of course, the next step there will be, incorporating those softwares as extra protection for them.
All
The
right.
first thing is regular frequent discussions.
All right. Well, experts say spending too much time on, using these devices such as computers, smartphones, and tablets can cause distraction and also concentration difficulties, resulting to low attention span and learning disabilities for children. Now, given that school-age children are now having to use more technology due to virtual learning, are we running into a situation where our children will be faced with learning difficulties at this point?
Yeah, well, that's definitely a good question there. When it comes to children access to technology in relations to educational purpose, that's actually beneficial. That's called active use of technology. The concern is when children are there and using it passively, such as, just watching those YouTube videos and just listening to music, actually not creating anything, but they are consuming in a passive way. That's where the problem is. When children spend a lot of time, say, doing schoolwork or doing extracurricular activity that actually helps their brain development and helps them to create more neural connections, that's actually beneficial in that way. It's when it's passive use that it becomes a concern.
Thanks. So let's speak further.
Your question?
Has she answered your question?
A little bit, but go ahead, Leila.
I was going to say, let's speak further then on the benefits that technology certainly provides for children today that past generations missed out on.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to technology, I'll say we are quite fortunate in this age that we are in. Technology helps us to simplify life in a lot of ways. It helps us to save time. It brings in that connections that we lacked before we actually had this free access and easy access as well. So technology has actually bridged the gap when it comes to communicating with family long distance. Look at what we're doing now. We're actually doing this interview across such a long distance. And yes, it's possible, and it's due to technology. Why technology is important, and I hate to demonize technology by all standard, but the fact is that when a good thing is not used rightly, when a good thing is not used effectively, it actually become negative. It can actually turn to a negative thing at the end of the day. Of course, technology is beneficial in a lot of ways to the children as well as the parents and to the society in general.
Yes, I like that you touched on the fact of the correct use of technology.
Yeah.
And, I'd love your recommendation on that for Nigerian schools. But also, when we talk about the unconscious use of technology, it mostly applies to young children. So what would you say is the rightful age for children to be exposed to technology?
Okay. You use the word unconscious use of technology applying to children. Actually, I beg to...
Mostly. I said mostly. Mostly.
Okay, mostly.
Yes, that's the word you missed out there.
The trend that we are actually seeing these days is that parents actually are not being the role model. According to studies, parents are spending an average of 4 to 5 hours on their gadget. And this doesn't have to relate with work. It doesn't relate with anything creative, but just time spending. I'm not going to call it time wasting, but just spending passive time on technology. And of course, children learn quickly from parents, and children, on the other hand, are spending about 7 to 9 hours on their gadget, not related to extracurricular activities. So when it comes to the use of technology, parents are right there at the middle. They they are the role models that the children are watching. So we as adults, we have to stand up to it and model the right ways for our children to actually use this technology rightly. So if you're saying to little John, well, you're spending too much time on your phone, then you as a parent should be mindful how much time you're spending on your phone as well.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And I want to speak about cybersecurity a bit and a lot of the things that children are exposed to, because you touched on sex trafficking, you touched on pornography as well. So what other cybersecurity risks would you say that children are exposed to? And would you say that the laws that we have in place, in Nigeria in particular now, like the Cybersecurity Act, or the Cybercrimes Act rather, are enough and are enforced and doing their job in this regard? Because I know there are provisions within the Cybercrime Act against sex trafficking and also child pornography.
Yeah. So when it comes to cybersecurity, I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of data in Nigeria, to be honest with you. My data are mostly based in America and in Canada. And I'm glad that you mentioned that Nigeria is working on that as well. A lot of countries are trying to catch up with the pace. The fact is that technology is growing at a faster rate than the laws actually are catching up, because it takes time for legislations or for these laws to actually be enacted and become enforceable. So in a lot of ways, there is that lag between what's actually happening now and what are the existing laws, and there's so much work to be done there. But when it comes to cybersecurity and how children are being protected online, again, like I said, there is that lag. It's definitely a concern when it comes to how much protection our children getting. Now, for instance, when a child's sexual abuse material is being shared across the internet, now the kind of punishment that is awarded for that kind of crime doesn't match it. Like in Canada, it's very minuscule, like nothing, or in the US as well. So there is that lag between it, for sure. And there's a lot of work to be done in that area. It's definitely an area in progress.
All right. Well, I'm not sure if you touched on my question on the recommendation of the correct use of technology in Nigerian schools, because, other experts are saying that, there are some positive effects of technology on child development, such as, an increased IQ.
Yeah. When it comes to Nigerian schools, okay.
Yes.
Again, when it comes to the benefit of technology across the board, now I would say that, yes, there's a benefit out there as long as it's being used the right way. The idea and the goal is to make sure that these technologies they're used actively, that the children are taught the right way to use it. We're not going to assume that they know, but we have to do these teachings. It has to be done in school, and it has to be matched up at home. Definitely, there is a lot of benefit as long as the children are given the right education and they are given the right supervision. Now, it's not only the right education, knowing now well that there's a lot of distraction out there, they also have to be duly supervised, whether directly or indirectly, why they are using it for educational purpose. Knowing, again, like I said, there's a lot of distractions out there. For sure, there's a lot of benefit when it comes to educational purposes, because they are able to complete their homework, so their assignment much faster. They can do more research. There is more vast information out there. There's more access to information for them to complete their work. For sure, there's a lot of benefits to that as well in that sense. But again, we have to be mindful that if they are not taught the right way, if there is not enough supervision, then the children could be at a disadvantage.
Absolutely. It's all about creating the right balance. Do stay with us. Let's go on a very quick commercial break here on The Morning Show, and we will be back with ABIE to continue this conversation on kids and technology. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching the morning show here on Arise News, and we still have our guest with us, ABIE Nusa Amen, an internet safety educator, speaking to us about how we can create safer online environments for our kids, given the prevalent use of technology today, especially with the pandemic. ABIE, many thanks for staying with us while we went on a quick commercial break. Let's also speak about the health risks that are involved with the prevalent use of technology, not even just for kids, but adults as well.
Okay, when it comes to health risks associated to overuse of technology, we can see that when it comes to, and now I'm also a registered nurse, so when it comes to that, it could be in the form of access of information. Now, people Google all the information that they want, so they have a problem. They don't want to go to the doctor. They Google that information, and then they start to self-prescribe and self-treat themselves. So it ends up being that it's either they may get better, but a high chance is that they stand the risk of complicating their health because they have not been in to seek the proper medical advice. So that's on one part. And secondly, when it comes to technology and or when it comes to another consequences of that or the negative use of it will be overused by parents. Like when parents overuse technology, of course, something has to give. That can be in the form of, not having enough time to really take care of their children or not having enough time to actually do what is important to them as well. And that can also affect their health. And we know that when it comes to when we overuse the internet, there's a chance that you're not exercising. Therefore, you can start to add weight. And, there's a high rate of obesity. Obesity is actually an epidemic right now in North America. So all of this can affect health in the way in which you use it. It can also affect the mental health is another thing. When people sit there on Facebook and use it or use social media and start to compare themselves with others, right? It affects their mental health. There's what they call Facebook depression. Now people come off Facebook and then they rate themselves of of a lower esteem than they were before they actually browse that. So that's another thing when it comes to mental health that is high. And this is what they call the internet use disorder. So overuse of the internet, basically internet addiction, whereby people are being diagnosed of actually having addiction to the internet. And we know that addiction just doesn't stop like that unless, of course, there's a treatment and there's a therapy as well with it. So the health risk is there when it is not used effectively or when it's not used in a controlled way.
You're absolutely right on that topic of the health risk. Still on technology and censorship, I know that you touched on some, monitoring techniques that parents can adopt to checkmate their children. But there is also the issue of cyberbullying, right? What methods can be used to protect our children from this, harmful content online?
Yeah, cyberbullying is definitely a rising trend when it comes to what children are exposed to online. And there's been cases whereby, children have actually committed suicide, attempted and succeeded in committing suicide because they've been cyberly bullied. For instance, the story of Rebecca Sedgwick, who killed herself because she was consistently cyberly bullied. For sure, that those are instances out there. Now, what can parents do to protect their children from cyberbullying? First is education, knowing that there's cyberbullying, that it is real, that it doesn't happen to that child, but it can also happen to your child. And letting your children know that these are social happenings out there on social media, that what they need to do to be able to respond if it does happen to them. Say, for instance, when you're cyberly bullied, let your child know that they can come to you as a safe adult, and they shouldn't be worried that that gadget that is being used as a medium to bully them is going to be taken away, because that's the number one reason kids don't report to their parents. They are afraid that the phone is going to be taken away from them. Therefore, parents need to educate their children, letting them know that if it does happen that somebody is saying to you, you're not good enough, you're not beautiful, go kill yourself, or you have no place on the Facebook or on Instagram, get out of here. Let your child know that they are good the way they are and they can come to you safely. So giving your child that education is very important. And also, it's also recommended that those information, that those abusive statement that is being sent to the child should be stored in case it becomes a situation whereby it has to be escalated to a police authority. Those information have to be stored as well. But most importantly, letting your children know that you are aware of this trend and they can come to you when it does happen to them and you are out there to help them. And equipping them and letting them know that their self-esteem does not depend on what other people say, but that they are good the way they are. So boosting their self-confidence is a sure way to overcome cyberbullying even before it happens.
Certainly, it's key to always try and affirm your children. But still on cyberbullying, would you say, or are there rather, any early warning signs that parents should look out for?
Yes, for sure. There are early warning signs. The first sign would be a change in behavior. So let's say your child, he likes the phone. He's usually on his phone. Suddenly, he's not liking his phone as much or he's staying away from the phone. So that's change of behavior. That's an early sign. Or that they fidget when those alert comes in, when those notification comes in. That's another thing. Or that maybe your child is complaining that, just for flimsy excuses, they don't want to go to school. They wake up in the morning and they don't feel like going to school. Because usually cyberbullying can be connected from an activity that's happened in school and now that has now gone digitally. So watching for those change in behaviors, change in appetite, and just, asking your child as well. Once you notice that, you should be able to say, well, John, I know you normally like your phone. What's happening? Is there something wrong? Is there somebody saying something that you don't like to you? Know that you can always come to me. Just giving them the assurance as soon as you see a change in behavior or a change in the way in which they normally would use their phone. That's the main thing that changes for sure.
All right. Well, really quickly, how can content on digital space be managed to target the appropriate age group?
Oh, that's a good question. It's more like, but for sure, I can kind of understand where you're going with that. So how can content be managed online such that you are targeting the right group? Now, with that, what you need to do is knowing where your target population is. So I might say I want to create an information about, say, cyberbullying. I'm most likely going to go to Instagram to send that message forth because you know why? The age range, about 50%, more than 50% of Instagram subscribers are aged between 14 to, say, 25. Around there. So knowing what the population is. Facebook is a little bit of an older audience, but for sure you can still find those younger ones there. So it's just, doing your research and finding the area in which the population that you're trying to target most likely would hang out. And it's different for the different age groups as well. I can give one examples of that if you want.
Go ahead, actually. We do still have a couple seconds, so if you could give some examples, that would be great.
Right.
Oh, for sure. And then when it comes to, say, sending out a message to a young audience too, another one will be YouTube. So when it comes to YouTube, there's a younger audience there as well who contains about greater than 50% of the subscribers. And when it comes to that, not only are they subscribed, they're actually watching those videos. According to studies, there's YouTube videos that are being watched in a day is about 1 billion hours of YouTube videos are being watched in a day. And if you split that by the word population, it's a high amount of time that people are spending on that. So finding that media that has the highest time spending. And a lot of them do when it comes to Facebook, to Snapchat, to Instagram, to YouTube. The way in which it's created is actually to keep you sucked in.
Well,
That's what they call
1 billion a day. 1 billion a day is a lot.
Yeah, it keeps you sucked in. It keeps you want to be there. That is intentionally created.
I'm going to have to cut you short here now. I'm so sorry. We have run out of time. Many thanks to you, ABIE Nusa Amen, Internet Safety Educator, for coming and sharing your knowledge with us today. It's time now.